Hiya. So I get asked often about my interest in skulls and where did that come from, and is that because I'm depressed or something. That actually is not just about skulls, it's about the entire dark side of life. And the answer is yes and no. But no, okay, let's start with let's talk about skulls. I fear that if I start talking about the whole darkness in me and in the world, it will be a never-ending story, and it will require at least 50 chapters. And that might as well be the case. But with skulls, honestly, I don't remember. I don't know. I don't know when did that happen. I mean, I've always been very curious. I've always been a little weird, but I definitely didn't have this sort of unquenched thirst to see, explore, learn about, collect, touch, find across the universe all of the skulls, that including human skulls and human remains, and not only. I mean that not humans and animals and all sorts of stuff. So I can't remember really first. I mean, I always liked the form. I don't think, especially since, you know, becoming, when I was a teenager and I changed schools and I became a bit of a metalhead, and I liked the sort of, you know, spikes and skulls and for the aesthetic kind of factor of it, and just basically being badass. At least I tried. But then things happened and I was just kind of slowly diverting towards darkest corners of existence. And that was within me and without me. And I just slowly realized that the skull, like presence of skulls, and just the form of skulls, it's like one of the most beautiful things that exist in nature. For me, it's a piece of art. And not of course not only skulls, and that's why I'm not only interested in skulls. But I definitely was always interested in death, and I was always very inquisitive and very attracted and kind of fascinated by the whole concept and the whole, maybe that's all it is. Maybe we invented death. Although I remember when I was a kid and I was about 7 years old, I must have been around 7 because my granddad died, and I remember we went to the cemetery, and there was this little kind of place where my family could see granddad for the last time, you know, in the coffin or something. But it was kind of separate, so we went to like a waiting room, and somebody asked me, you know, whether I would like to go and see grandpa for the last time. Which, when you think about it, it's not too morbid, because they already made him up, you know, put the makeup on him, prepare him for the viewing, and so it's not like, you know, he was rotting there. It is just, you know. But I wasn't as assertive as I am now, so I was very kind of insecure about what am I supposed to answer, and I was really curious. But for some reason my grandma said, oh no, you don't want to, you want to remember granddad as you remember him, right? You want to keep this image of grandpa as you remember him, right? And I was like, yeah. to this day, I regret, if I have any regrets in my life. So yes, then I couldn't keep thinking about it. I couldn't stop thinking about it because it was, it's nothing you can undo, I'm afraid. Okay, morbid jokes apart. I should not joke about such things. It's indecent to joke about death. But yeah, and I have not experienced a lot of deaths in my life. To be fair, it's kind of interesting that for a person who is so interested in death and in the remains and the whole process in between, I have not experienced a lot of death directly. And I think I said that not long ago in a video when I was talking about this bird I saw that was dead. Of course, we all see like roadkill and stuff like that, but that was somehow different. And I think the first time I've experienced direct death of something that was alive and gone, it was actually, again, not that long ago, relatively. I was, I was already an adult and I was living with some people, and one of the guys who lived there had 3 cats. You see where this is going. Basically, one day I came down, low battery. I came down to the bathroom in the morning, half asleep and stuff, and I see basically the mouse, in the middle of the hole, and 3 cats kind of a bit confused what they were supposed to do about it. They kind of forgot, the part. They brought the mouse and the rest was history. They just didn't know how to deal with that. So I was like, what the fuck is going on? And I was kind of not used to cats at home and everything, so I didn't realize how obvious that is, and how I'm like, oh yeah, it took me a while to kind of like, yeah, of course they brought it in to play with it, and they just kind of. So, but the mouse was still alive, and I was trying to, bring it back to life because it was kind of on its way out, and but it didn't survive, unfortunately, and it was really, really sad. I was really sad about that. Yeah, I'm even sad when I think about it now. And other than that, my family, kind of, I don't know. I remember. I think the first death I acknowledged was a death of my father's friend, who I really liked, and he was always very kind and nice to us and funny, and when I got the news, yeah, it was just, I think that was before my grandfather. I was really really moved by that. Like, what do you mean there is no way back? Nobody really had to explain me what, there was no going to dog heaven kind of thing. There was no there was no kind of like, oh, he had to go traveling forever or something. No, it was very straightforward. From, there was no, I don't know how my parents had it really easy. There was never any kind of difficult traumatic discussion about life. I just kind of seemed to soak this knowledge from my brother and from my from books, or just randomly popping into in front of me. My mom told me when I was in Poland. Do you remember how you used to say, you didn't raise me, my brother raised me? And I'm laughing because I forgot that I told her that I used to say that, but actually that's how I kind of felt for a long time. I mean, for a long time, for always. I feel like my brother had a lot to do with my upbringing. So a lot of who I am, I owe to my brother. These first kind of roots. So yeah, my father's friend, and then that was supposed to be about skulls, but somehow it became about death on this joyful sunny day. But death is present always, so it doesn't really matter, does it? We don't have to be depressed about death. It's a completely normal subject. So then I think my grandfather died, and I was really moved by that. I was really sad, and I cried a lot on the funeral. And I was, just a kid, so everybody was kind of concerned with me and my reaction to that. But we weren't really close. My grandfather was quite aloof, quite kind of distant from everything. When I think about it, if you married my grandmother, then you would be as well. Maybe I was his coping mechanism. He would smoke a lot, and I think that was one of the reasons he got cancer. I think, I can't remember. And I used to hide cigarettes from him, which he didn't appreciate. I can't even remember him laughing. It's a very, very vague memory of him. But he used to smoke. He used to sit in his favorite chair watching Eurosport, all sorts of strange sport events that I never understood why. I never understood why people watch it to this day. And he kind of lived in his own world, and he loved fishing. For another thing that is very far from my kind of my understanding. I just can't relate to it. I know how people say, oh, it can be relaxing because you spend time by the water and you wait. You can do that without catching a fish, right? But I don't want to make it I don't want to make it a statement against fishing here. Video. That's going to be next time. I promise. But funny thing that he used to always, keep the maggots in the fridge, which was driving my grandmother crazy. So, what a funny pair. So he passed away, and after that, my great grandmother was. So the point, what I wanted to say was that, in a way, I was, I loved him, and he was a bit awkward, and he didn't really know. I think he had some kind of, he wasn't sure. I don't think he knew how to deal with his feelings and family, and kind of, he wasn't very warm, as a person. But he wasn't, I didn't dislike him. Definitely, I had a lot of feelings for him, and I was really sad, obviously. So. Well, then, it's very easy for me now to start thinking. It kind of triggers my memories, and I could just pull out of these memories forever and talk about my family, and how the fact that he was aloof kind of explains my father's behavior, etc., and how this just goes on and on in the family history, and the secrets of the family, and things like that. But he was quite an interesting kind of figure in my life, although not for long. I wonder what would be my perception of him today if he was alive. And what would be his perception, how he would react on me. Maybe he would ignore me completely. Interesting. So then my great-grandmother died much, much later. I was, I think, 15 or something like that, and I was away, and I didn't go to funeral because I was away, and it was kind of logistically very complicated then. and I decided not to go. I always found that, for me, I was very proud of it, and proud. I think that, all these things that were family things, that were things that you were supposed to attend and supposed to, be. If I didn't feel it, I would not just conform to the family kind of assumption, which obviously didn't make me very popular in family books, because I always felt like these things, especially things to do with certain with life and death, and these are very personal relationships, personal things, and I would not do any of these just to show off and just to show up, kind of that, you see, I'm here, it's a personal thing. It's my business. It's my own conscience. It's nobody. It's for nobody to judge. So if I decide to attend a ceremony, it's my decision. So anyway, that somehow it was strange, because somehow this wasn't really as painful as I would think. My great grandmother, my grandmother's mother, was from my mother's side. She was a very, very warm and cheerful and positive person, and she always wanted just the best for everyone, and she was just always smiling, smoking like a dragon. Always, she was so happy about. She also smoked, but she was so happy about it. She was, and then when she was less and less kind of able to, less independent, she was basically, just staying in bed, and she would always call us to me and my brother, and to. She wanted to smuggle some money, because we were like, stop it, because she had a small, her money she would have that was just about to, survive on, and kind of, although, the family was taking care of her, but you know what I mean. And she always wanted to give everything away, and she would have nothing for herself, and we were like, no. And it was very hard to say no to her, because she would just, like, oh, can you just pass me this handbag? And so, you're not going to say, I see where this is going, especially if you're a kid. So it's like, oh, yes, grandma, handbag. And then she stopped, because I think my grandma started, like, putting these things away, further away from her. She somehow managed always to sneak some money under the pillow, and she always had it ready when we came over. So she would put these notes in our hands and like clench it, like, keep this. And, and she was just so happy to see everyone, always a beautiful person. But at some point it was not a lot of course, at some point you don't have as much contact, you don't know how much, it's not like she was losing it, but of course, she would forget things, etc., etc. And I think she said something like, my brother told me that she would hear music just before not long before she passed away. She said like something like, that orchestra is that she hears an orchestra, and that they're coming for her, or something like that. Can't remember exact words, but I just kind of accepted that it was, she was of a certain age, and it wasn't like a surprise that she passed away. But I kind of just accepted that very quickly. And then again, years later, my grandfather died, and that was more, that was very strange, because he was a very strong personality, and for my grandmother especially, it was, heartbreaking, and she's still, years after, she's talking about it, and but it was this strange feeling. It was more like a very important event in my family that affected and changed the dynamics. My father hated grandfather enough to. That was my mom's dad. He hated him enough to even still, kind of hold things against him after he died. Like, for fuck's sake, But he was also not well, so probably this all kind of. I think at some moments you might have even forgotten that granddad is dead already. It was still a card in discussion. I don't know. Okay, it's very strange. Well, death affects family. It's a direct has a direct impact. It almost it's hard to talk about this without mentioning the family dynamics, I think, and because these are the deaths that I've experienced in my life, So I have never, and for me, I was not very close with my grandfather. He was a strong kind of strong point of gravity in my family and in everybody's life. Everyone in my family. So of course it changed things, but then I was already away as well. I already left the home, so it's different. And when you're a kid, and it's different when you're there directly experiencing and the whole process of grieving of everyone. I was not there, so it kind of passed me by. And again, I did not go to the funeral, and that was a big funeral, and a lot of people went there, and I was not very affected by that. I kind of shed a tear for life. I shed a tear for a soul passing on, but and for certain things that I wish could have been different. But my direct relationship with my grandfather was not ideal, and I don't think that I don't even think if he noticed, to be honest. I don't think he cared enough to notice these things. He was a very strong but very strange person when you think about it. Everything seems kind of normal within a family, but then you take some distance and you see like, wow, some people are fucked up. So I never felt like I could ever know him, really. So I could only see things from my perspective there. So yeah, I think there's a lot to be said about death, isn't it? So I just kind of started talking about deaths and the ones I've experienced, and yeah, what's your experience? How did you get introduced to the concept of dying in your life? Because that's quite interesting. How do we actually, we're born and we're kids and we're going, we're running about our business, and then somebody just tells you like, oh, by the way, there's a catch, like you're gonna die. So I can't remember anyone ever fooling me about any of these things. Like I always knew that that's the case. There was no big breakthrough, and there was no big kind of discovery of death. It was just different levels of experience, different level of direct experience. And I still have both of my parents, although I don't talk to my father, and with my mother I have quite like a quite a, we used to be very close. I think both my parents used to be very close, but I don't want to talk about it right now. It's long, personal story. So, so I've been talking for a while right now already. So I think that's it's more than enough for now. So, but they're still alive. So I have never experienced the death of a parent, which is obviously one of the biggest, very painful events most of the time. So, I still have that ahead of me, which is very strange to realize that, I just can't relate to people who've lost their parents, although on some level I have lost them many times already. Especially if I don't talk to at least one of my parents. So there was certainly some kind of breaking breaking point. But still, it's not the same. It's not the same where in theory, I could still kind of go back in touch with my dad, and there is this possibility. And once somebody dies, it's like there is nothing ever possible anymore. So this kind of finite nature of things that hits you, that must be completely different than any other cutting contact, I think. And I have never experienced, fortunately, I have never experienced the death of someone really, really close to me. So that is something that, is very abstract for me as well. Although I always have awareness of death, but not this experience, and it's not something that I would look forward to, but it's certainly something that might happen one day, and I have no idea how I would react, even though I'm so aware of them and so not direct, because I'm not a mortician, but even though I think I wouldn't mind being a mortician. Actually, I think it would be very interesting, and I had this sort of interests for a while now, and definitely I'm drawn towards this kind of work and this kind of dealings with death in one way or another. I'm not saying definitely mortician, but of course this is what I'm after, always going around the world looking for dead things, dead things in jars, dead things in the ground, dead things in churches, dead things in art. So but it's still not the same, and I don't assume that I am kind of immune. Actually, au contraire, I think I am quite sensitive to death and the passing moment. But I'm going to wrap it up now, because it got me into some kind of, I feel like my memories are pulling me into their corner, and I have to fight it a little bit. So I think I need a break, and I might talk later. Who knows? There's always tomorrow, or is it? Or is there? Okay, I'll see you around. Take care.